Yeah, all right, Rob. It was a big weekend of football in the NFL. So let's get right to it. The Dolphins, in another test, they failed their first one miserably, right? They play the Bills. They get drubbed 48-20. And then they go to Philadelphia, and it wasn't a complete demolition like Buffalo, but
it was 17
they got
all,
beat pretty
wasn't
handily.
It?
I don't know if it was Rob G.
It was 17 all. No, it was 17 all, wasn't it? And then they tie it at 17? Yeah, it was tied. Yeah.
But it was. It felt to me
point.
like Philadelphia
I get your
was
point,
in
but it
control.
wasn't like the Buffalo game.
No,
That's
it wasn't
all I'm
Buffalo.
saying.
But it was also pretty clear, at least yesterday, that Philadelphia was the better team. I mean, they were. I didn't think it ever felt like, to me, Miami was in control of that game. Philadelphia just kind of dominated, held them to 244 yards total, Rob, for a team that, granted, it was Denver, but they put up 700 plus on them.
No, I get it. It's still like, hey, it's not like that's been done before or recently in the NFL. It's hard to do that, right?
Put up 70 points?
Yeah, I'm just saying, you still got to give them credit for that no matter who it came against because it just didn't happen.
Yeah, I give them credit for that, right. But I do believe they need to be taken down a notch. They already were taken down a notch by Philadelphia. But, Rob, and I said it on Friday, Miami hasn't beaten anybody this year. Miami is 8-20. The 5 teams that Miami has beaten, they're 5-2, have a combined record of 8-25. 8-25. And the 2 times they've stepped up in class, they got beaten handily. One time they get drubbed, and the next time they get beaten in solid fashion, 31-17. And I think they're a good team for sure. I think, Rob, a lot of people have had them as maybe the best team in the AFC, maybe the best team in the league. I think they are a tier 2 NFL team. My tier 1 would be right now Kansas City, Baltimore, San Francisco, and Philadelphia.
I thought you had the Lions in there, no?
No.
Tier 1? No.
And my tier 2, I would have Lions in the tier 2 with Dallas and Miami. And Cincinnati, I think, could, if they really get it rolling, Rob, I think they could get back to a tier 1 team this year. We'll see how they, continue to play. And Burrow's health and stuff. But, yeah, I just think they were a bit overrated. And, Rob, when you look at their schedule, because I don't think they're physical enough and as good enough on the defensive end as the top teams that I mentioned. All of those teams I mentioned are top defensive teams in the league. Miami is bottom 6 in points allowed. Give up over 26 points a game. All right, and I think they're not as physical as Philadelphia, which is one of the most physical teams in the league, but the other teams I mentioned as well. Like I just thought Philadelphia, and this is why I thought they'd win, is that they were too tough for them at the line of scrimmage, and they were able to put some pressure on Tua, and he's such a timing, like their passing game is all timing, and when you can put that pressure on him, you can disrupt that timing. But Rob, quickly before you go, here's what Miami's done this year. They beat the Chargers, who are 2-4, and they beat them by 2 points, but we're down 34-30 with 2 minutes left in the game. Don't take that away from them, but I'm just saying it wasn't like they rolled over the Chargers. Patriots, they beat by a touchdown. They had control of that game, but they only won by a touchdown. Broncos, that was obviously, as you said, impressive. I don't care who they were playing. I don't care if it's the worst team in the history of the NFL. You put 70 on somebody and 700 plus yards, that's impressive. Then they get crushed by Buffalo. They beat the Giants. They pounded them with Tyrod Taylor. And then I don't know if Tyrod Taylor was playing that Giants game. I don't think he was in that game. And then they pound the winless Panthers. and then, of course, get beat by the Eagles. So I look at their schedule, and I say, they did one thing that was really incredibly impressive, and that was beat the Denver Broncos like they stole something. But outside of that, they haven't really not only beaten any good teams, but, they're beating who they should, which is great, but that doesn't make you elite. And so I got them on that second tier, Rob.
I'm not going with you. I'm going to keep them on the first tier because they have an extraordinary offense that is scary at all times. And that they might not beat you, Chris, defensively, and I agree with you. They are not physical enough. They can get pushed around. But I have seen this team have comeback ability even by being down by big scores. And last year was when they got my attention. You remember at Baltimore down 28-7, they roared back and they won that game. Also last year, they were down 21-7 to the Lions. Lions were everybody's darling last year, and they came back and won that game, Miami. So that and their offensive, Chris, and I'm with you. Defensively, a lot to be desired. Physicality, a lot to be desired. But there is also, when you talk about tiers, when you put it all together, they might not be tier one completely, but I'm going to keep them at tier one completely because of their offense is even high, is as good as it gets, is as scary as it gets, is because they can put up points in a hurry and can score. So it's for that reason that I'm going to keep them there and not drop them yet. I need more sample size, and you got 2 games. It was 17 all last night. They wound up losing, so it didn't feel good. I agree, it didn't feel like they were ever in control of that game. And the Buffalo game I'm going to throw out. Buffalo, they beat them up bad. There's no excuse. I mean, I can't even make an argument. It was a bad game. They lost. But I'm not ready to dump out of Miami or think that they're not going to be in a way or cause some trouble for somebody or do something in the postseason where somebody can get beat by them because they're so powerful offensively. So that's what I'm looking at the Dolphins. Last night didn't change my opinion that the Dolphins are still going to be a team that you'll have to be reckoned with in the AFC.
Yeah, look, as a tier 2 team, I mean, I mentioned Dallas, I mentioned Detroit. So they're still a good team, and those teams are all capable of winning a playoff game. So I'm not throwing them out like that. I'm just saying I see a gap between them and the ultra elite, at least as I see it right now. They gotta beat. Now look, they got New England next. With New England had a good win over Buffalo.
That was impressive right
Buffalo
there.
all
My
you
God.
want, right? But that's a good win, and I think that'll be a good test for Miami. They beat them, 24-17 earlier in the season, so it'll be interesting to see how that game goes. New England probably feeling better about itself, and then Rob, they got Kansas City, so they've got a couple of good tests coming up, and we'll find out, how they fare against in those 2 games. They obviously should beat New England, but let's see how impressive it is. But yeah, I want to see them beat up on some good teams. I thought Mike McDaniel had a good attitude after the game, where obviously you're upset, but he said, Rob, you can learn from losses. He said losses can be good. And that's true. I mean, look, nobody's expected to go undefeated through the NFL season. There's only one team that's done it, at least go all the way to the Super Bowl.
Right.
And so you're going to lose some games, and you're going to lose some games to teams that are worse than you over the course of the regular season, and you just have to learn from them. Now, my thing about Miami is I think, again, the physicality is a problem for them. And so I'm not saying they're a bunch of wimps or they're soft, but I do think that they're not nearly as physical as those top teams in the league. And I don't know that that's something that they're going to be able to fix this year. They're a finesse team. They do want to beat you with finesse. They want you to be on your heels because you're so worried about their offense and their speed that then they can run the ball on you and all that stuff. And there's no doubt, I agree with you. Offensively, they are off the charts. And Tyreek Hill alone, his speed, and then everybody else is fast. I know Achane is injured, but he's a burner. Mostert's got wheels. Obviously, Jalen Waddle, they got speed all over the place, and that is something to deal with. But if they can't hold guys off up front, now they were a little banged up on the offensive line, so I'll give them that. But if you can't hold off the pass rush, then they're going to struggle because that's when teams can get Tua off his timing. And then they won't be able to score enough. And Rob, they pretty much got to outscore you, because the defense isn't great. And Fangio I think he may improve it, but it's not going to be elite this year.